Imagine, if you will, rice, the abundant, nutritious white harvest of the verdant paddy fields, a staple the world over. But this fried, but fried this time not by a trustworthy fellow human being, but by a shrimp. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we are having another magic talk with Toad. I'm down the Machina, and this is Toad. Say hello, Toad.
Hello.
Cool. So today we are going over a deck we went over last week, and we played it last week. We played a different version of it. We've since updated it. This is shrimp fried rice, or just a version of shrimp fried rice. We're still tinkering with it. It is a very interesting deck and kind of simple one, so today's episode will be a little bit shorter than usual. Because we'll go over like what the deck does, its matchups, its hands. We'll play a few hands, look at the sideboard. And we'll just have a short one for all of y'all. Next week, we're going to do our Avatar set review, or top picks, whatever. Where this week, Tony and I are going to go through the Avatar cards that we think will be good for Value Vintage. And we'll do a PowerPoint on them for next week. So this week, we're kind of taking it easy and just showing a deck that's kind of a meme. It has potential, it's pretty good. Tony will explain how terrible they did, or bad matchup they got in a tournament yesterday when we were filming this, so Sunday the 16th of November. But this is a fun deck. We wanted to show it off, and we thought it'd be funny to have a shrimp fried rice. So, yeah. So, explain the deck, Toad.
So what we're doing here is we have a Boros Asmo deck, which is doing all of the Asmo stuff with Cookbook and Step Through and Oval Chase Daredevil. And then that is combined with the Kami of the False Hope Abiding Grace lock that Martyr of Sands plays. And then we've got Voldaren Epicure and Thraben Inspector to kind of get through some cards and enable Asmo. And we are running 4th Year Lingus and Joshua Phoenix's Dominant as our primary win conditions once we have locked down the board.
Got it. So that's a pretty simple explanation, and it's a fairly simple deck. So we'll kind of go over some of the more choice cards as we see them, and we'll sort of explain them through, and then Toad will explain the sideboard, and before we go into playing hands, Toad will explain how they did at their tournament yesterday.
Yeah, this deck has 2 tournament results, and those results are 3-0 not dropping a game and 0-3 not winning a game. This deck lives and dies by the matchups it gets.
Yeah. So, explain the shrimp Ragos to me.
So, the shrimp turns all of your artifacts into foods. So it turns Soul Ring, Vexing Bauble, Clues, and Bloods into foods, which allows Asmo to throw them at opposing creatures if you need to.
Oh, that's clever.
So it also is a little bit of burn at the end of the game, but the primary application for this guy is just letting Asmo cook all of your artifacts.
Oh, neat. That's kind of clever. And I'm sure it gives some incremental value too.
Not a ton.
Not a ton?
Usually either you're winning the game with that 3 damage, or you're just sitting on the Ragosh as a 2-2.
Got it. That's a pretty decent bear at least. 2-2 for 2.
Yeah, this deck can definitely use a 2-2 body for 2. It has a lot of 1-power creatures on turn 1, and then some bigger creatures that usually come down turn 3. So if you can curve out with your 2-2, it's totally fine to just have it sit and play for a couple turns, or eat a removal spell or a counter spell.
Yeah. Not essential, but it's nice to have.
Yeah. Thraben Inspector. This deck can run more Inspectors with the Novice, but we're currently just on the 4. It's just a 1-2 that makes a clue, and you can get it back with Abiding Grace. The deck currently doesn't have main deck stack outlets for creatures. It was on Makeshift Munitions for a while, but that card just generally did not do a ton in this deck.
Interesting.
Because you're hoping to feed all of your foods and some of your other artifacts potentially through Asmo. So you actually don't always have a bunch of artifact tokens lying around. And the creatures generally are able to block and put themselves in the graveyard. When you're playing a matchup where they can't do that, you do have trouble. So that's part of the matchup dependent thing that I mentioned.
Interesting.
Oval Chase Daredevil is an engine with Underworld Cookbook. You tap the cookbook, you discard the Oval Chase. The cookbook makes a food. Oval Chase sees the food come into play and then goes back from your graveyard to your hand. So you can make a food every turn for each cookbook you have, which is really kind of an engine to keep the board clear with Asmo.
Okay.
You do not have black mana in this deck. You cannot cast Oval Chase Daredevil. And if you ever get into a position where you need to cast Oval Chase Daredevil, you're not winning the game anyway.
Yeah.
So it's worth hurting the mana base for it.
Got it.
Epicure is, again, a one-drop body that generates an artifact token. The blood is a little bit better than the clue because the blood lets you drop a turn 2 Asmo with a second land. So you can get your Asmo out, turn ahead of curve. This is the only way to really enable it turn 2 besides just naturally having a cookbook. It also deals some chip damage to the opponent. This deck is very slow and grindy, but in a way where you care about your opponent's life total.
Okay.
So you may notice we're not running any Swords to Plowshares in our white deck because this is a deck that can deal 20 to 24 damage very easily. And if you have to deal 25, you need to be able to completely lock down the game, which is not always doable.
Got it.
You're really trying to avoid giving your opponent big chunks of life with the Swords to Plowshares.
That makes sense. I know past versions have Path to Exile in it, but you got rid of it.
I took the Path to Exiles out, and I ran the tournament without them, and you do need some target removal. I've replaced them with Council's Judgment because the permanents I was losing to were not really creatures most of the time.
Okay.
We have Asmo in here, so Asmo is a 3/3 with no mana cost, which means you can't cast her normally. If you've discarded a card, you can cast her for a black or a red. In this deck, it's just going to be a red. When she comes in, she finds you a cookbook, which is great, and then you can sacrifice 2 foods to make target creature deal 6 damage to itself.
Okay.
So 6 damage in this format will kill almost everything you care about. The only thing you're really going to struggle with is like Tinker targets, Reanimation targets, Oath targets, stuff like that, where they're putting a big creature into play for free or for cheap.
Yeah.
All of the like initiative threats and rhinos and stuff like that, if you can catch it before they grow something with like the Boo token for Minskin Boo, you can kill it. You do have to be able to handle threats relatively quickly as they appear.
Got it.
We have 2 Joshua. Phoenix is dominant, so if you want to hover over that one.
Yeah, that's an interesting card I was curious about.
So this is a wizard, so we can find it with Step Through. It is a 3/4 body, so it dodges Lightning Bolt, and it dodges Fatal Push, which people are starting to play in this format. When he enters, you can discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards. So if we can pitch some Oval Chase Daredevils or some lands, we can just draw more cards. You don't have to. If your hand is good, you can just hold on to stuff. And then for 5 mana, tap, we can exile him and then bring him back as the Phoenix. So the Phoenix is a 4/4 flying lifelink, and it's also a Saga enchantment. So the first 2 are deal 2 damage to each opponent, which because of the lifelink means you'll gain 2 life immediately and then 2 life the next turn before you even have to attack. And then the final ability on the Phoenix is we just get back a bunch of our little bodies. So we get an Asmo, we get Thraben Inspectors, we get Epicures, we get Commies. Everything except Oval Chase, basically, we can put this out with. You can get Oval Chase if there's one stuck in your graveyard, but again, Oval Chase is not in this deck to be a body on the field.
Yeah.
And then it'll turn back into Joshua, and you get to do the draw effect again.
Well, that's pretty clever.
So Joshua also will let you play an Asmo in the mid to late game. Usually the first Asmo comes down, kills one or two creatures, and then gets dealt with. So you want to be able to enable a second one. The cookbook will do it, especially if you have the oval chase to feed it, but it doesn't hurt to have other options in case the cookbook also gets dealt with. People will bring in like Meltdown or Bifrost against this deck, so your cookbooks can also catch some removal. And then finally for the creatures we have Kami of False Hope. This is just a 1/1 spirit where you sacrifice it and prevent all combat damage this turn.
Alright.
So this is a one-shot fog, but then we have Abiding Grace to get it back every turn, which means if they don't have enchantment removal or graveyard removal, you can just set up a combat damage lock. They can break it with instant speed removal spells. So you do have to be aware of that, and if possible, play around it by having multiple copies out. Let's go down to the sorceries. So we've got 2 copies of Step Through. We can't make blue mana. We're not actually casting this. This is in here just for Wizard Cycling 2. So we discard the Step Through at instant speed, and we get to tutor up a wizard. The wizards in the deck are Asmo and Joshua, and the Wizard Cycling is discarding a card, which means when you find Asmo, you can just cast her immediately. So this is a turn 3 play or a turn 4 play where you just tutor for Asmo, cast Asmo. If the opponent is not on a deck where you're super worried about containing their creatures, you have the backup plan to get Joshua, who is just a bigger body and some draw and threaten the Phoenix ability.
Yeah.
We have Council's Judgment. I went back and forth on Council's Judgment versus Skyclave Apparition. Skyclave is probably better in this deck as a body, but there are some things it misses. So Council's Judgment can get rid of creatures that are bigger than 4 mana value, and it can also get rid of other stuff, like stuff that's hexproof. So Skyclave is really good against tokens, and kind of good against stuff from 1 to 4 mana value. Council's Judgment is acceptable against that stuff, but much better if you need to handle a big creature or a big enchantment or planeswalker. So this is mainly in the deck to handle artifacts and enchantments. So just running Path to Exile is not going to do it. It also handles planeswalkers. Minsc and Boo is a big one that I just got absolutely smashed by in the tournament.
Oh, got it. I can see Council's Judgment being really good. Does this deck fold to Rest in Peace?
You don't fold to Rest in Peace, but if it's in play, you do want to try and get it off the field.
Okay.
Yeah, and then for Rest in Peace, you could just run Skyclave. I think. Go ahead, look up Skyclave for me so I can make sure it does do what I think it does.
Skyclave. Apparition.
I think it's any permanent mana value 4 or less.
Non-land, non-token permanent.
It's not even better against tokens. That's what I was missing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Council's Judgment answers Dark Depths tokens. Like, if you have the Fog to stop the first attack, then you can take it off the board. It can take the Boo off the board and let you attack the Minsc. It answers a Rhino out of Rhinos, so this is why it's in here. Even though we have the ability with the Phoenix to bring back a Skyclave later, the Council's Judgment just answers more threats.
Got it.
So you want to be able to handle, like, if the opponent is on blue-white control and they get an Elspeth out, one of the 6-mana Elspeth, or if the opponent is on a Nick Fit deck and they get out an Alpha Deathclaw. council's judgment just says whatever non-land permanent is a problem, you don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
And then fourth year Lingus, this is about a third of our budget, a little bit over, but this is what makes the deck really be able to grind out the control matchups. Without this card, we are good against low to the ground aggro decks because we can set up Asmo in the fall block, but we would really struggle keeping up on card advantage with control decks. And fourth year Lingus lets us get the Monarch online as early as turn 2. If we play a 1-drop on turn 1 and they just like tap out for an Astrolabe or something, we can just get in there and start drawing cards. And then later in the game, if we've run them out of counter spells, fourth year Lingus can put 6 or 8 power with haste into play and get the Monarch at that point to kind of seal things up when we're like even on the board, kind of even on card advantage, and then we just get to resolve fourth year Lingus and win the game.
Yeah.
As far as artifacts, we've got Soul Ring. This previously wasn't a Soul Ring deck, but with fourth year Lingus and Joshua, you do actually have good uses for colorless mana past like turn 1 or 2. It's good to cycle the step through, so that gives us another way to do Asmo on turn 2. And it pays for the sap costs on foods and bloods and clues.
Okay.
So we can use the mana. We also have a couple of lands that have abilities that we can feed with Soul Ring. We've got a Vexing Bauble, so the deck really struggles with the combo matchups.
Yeah, I can see that.
We're barely behind against mid-range because mid-range usually has good threats backed up with good removal, which can kind of like interfere with us trying to set up the locks. But the combo decks kind of just don't care about most of what we're doing until after we sideboard. And Vexing Bauble is a cantrip, so like we can just draw a card with it if we don't need it.
Yeah.
And then the cookbook is just 1-mana artifact, tap, discard a card, make a food. 4 tap, sacrifice, get a creature card from your graveyard back to your hand. I have never actually in this deck activated the get back a creature version. It's just in here to make foods. And by the time you would want to cash it in to get back like an Asmo or a Joshua or something, the opponent has usually found a way to blow up a cookbook, or you have just won the game.
Yeah. And all the time I used to play Asmo food decks, I don't think I ever used its ultimate, or the ultimate ability on the World Cookbook.
It's very relevant because against the like super long control decks where Asmo is not cashing in foods to kill stuff because they don't really have a bunch of creatures, being able to threaten another Asmo or another Joshua super late can be an actual threat. It just doesn't come up very often. So it's not useless words on the card, but it is a super niche case for the card.
Yeah, I've been mainboarding Vexing Bauble more often for how many combo decks we come across.
Yeah, I was really prepared for like aggro and control decks for the Cockatrice League this week, and I played against a combo deck, a mid-range deck, and a combo deck.
Rough.
And just got absolutely bodied.
Rough.
So I kind of changed the deck a little bit. I put in the Vexing Bauble, I put in the Council's Judgments, and then I messed with the sideboard just a little.
Okay.
Let's go down to enchantments. So we've got Abiding Grace. This is a 3-mana white enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, so not your upkeep, this happens on the turn that you play it also. Either you gain a life or you get a 1-drop creature back from your graveyard to the battlefield. So normally what you're doing with this is getting back Kami. Notably, it cannot get back Asmo. It's not 1 or less. It has to be exactly 1. So that is kind of unfortunate, and that's what we were using the Lurises for, but it never actually came up in like multiple rounds of testing. So we are just on the full 4 Abiding Grace. the life gain on this is relevant because it forces them to attack to make you pop the kami. Because if they don't pop the kami, then you just get to say, well, I'm just going to gain life. And against the aggressive decks, especially burn, if you gain 1 life a turn for 3 or 4 turns, especially if you have a second abiding grace, it does start to put the game out of reach for them.
Got it.
Let's go down in the lands. So we have Furycom Snarl as just a duel that we can play and untap sometimes. We have 3 each, basic plains and mountains. We have 4 Glittering Massifs, which are a dual land that cycles. So these are another way to get Asmo out. We have Ash Barrens, which has basic land cycling, so we can find a basic, and then this also lets us get Asmo out. We have a Gaia Reach Sanitarium. So this is a way to turn Oval Chase Daredevil into card advantage instead of food.
Okay.
You do have to pair it with artifacts, so you need a way to like make a clue token or cast a Soul Ring or something, but it does let you turn Oval Chases into cards. And this also will let you cast Asmo. And something that came up, it didn't matter because I wasn't able to draw more hate pieces in time, but Gaia Reach Sanitarium does stop some Laboratory Maniac lines.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
Because if their deck is empty and they go to put Labman into play, you can just make them draw a card before they have Labman. So I was able to draw the game out against Oops All Spells like 2 or 3 turns longer than it normally would have been, because they had to set up a turn where they had extra mana to flashback a Memory's Journey.
Gary's one of my favorite cards. I love it, and I have an altar of it I'm quite happy with.
Yeah.
And then a new Avatar card.
A new card from the Avatar set, Abandoned Air Temple. This card is about $1.80, so it's kind of expensive. But what this does is turn all of our 1-power creatures into actual threats.
Interesting.
This is not sorcery speed. This is like just you can put a counter on at the opponent's instep, untap, do it again, and now your Thraben Inspector and Voltaren Epicure are 3-power guys, and you're swinging for 6 with them. So it turns all of your just like little random bodies into actual creatures. And I think this card will come down in price. I don't know that because this is an effect that's pretty popular for Commander, but I feel like this is a $1 card and not a $2 card.
Yeah.
We'll have to.
We'll see.
We've got 2 Quarry Mountain Monasteries as the last land. So this is just something that I'm trying. The deck kind of runs out of steam if it doesn't have one of its engines going. So I would like to try these mountain monasteries just to see. The deck can get to like 4 or 5 mana no problem. So we actually added a land. The Abandoned Air Temple was taking a spell slot away from Aluris. So we're on more lands now, and we are trying to use our lands for more spell-like effects.
Got it. That's pretty clever.
Then let's go down to the sideboard. First card. I put the wrong livestock card in. Hold on. This is supposed to be the new one from Avatar.
Oh, the food critter.
Yeah, see, swap that and make sure the deck is still legal. Well, okay, so I have to do it. Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
Did not realize there were multiple cards named livestock.
Don't you know the difference between one livestock card and the other?
Apparently not. I am not a livestock. Nope, this is the wrong livestock.
That's also the wrong livestock. What's the right one?
Let me look for Oxbird MTG.
There's nothing.
Curious Farm Animals.
Curious Farm Animals.
Alright, sorry everybody, a little bit of technical difficulties. Alright, This actually is going to put the deck over budget.
Huh. Well, might as well figure it out now.
I was so proud of myself. So yeah, we're just going to cut one of those mountain monasteries and put a plains in. There we go. Perfect. 29.96. All right, back to
what we were saying.
All right, so now we have Purify the Grave. This is in here as a budget concession. You want to have some graveyard hate, and this is a 5-cent one instead of Soul Guide, which is 12 cents, which would be too expensive. And it does matter that it flashes back because we have some discard synergy in here. So you can discard a Purify the Grave to a Cookbook or a Joshua and still be holding up graveyard removal.
Okay.
So there's an argument for mass graveyard removal versus targeted graveyard removal. What I have been seeing people play recently is a lot of Dread Return decks and a lot of life-death decks where targeted removal is perfectly adequate. I have not been seeing as many decks like Prized Amalgam type Dredge or a Squeeze Zombie Infestation type stuff where you just want to say, no, you don't get to have a graveyard at all.
Yeah.
So if those type of decks do become more popular, or if they are more popular in your meta and you want to try this deck, you might need to fit in Soul Guide Lantern or Hormod's Crypt or something like that instead of Purify the Grave. Sheevan Harvest. So this is doing two things for us. First off, we struggle against Trench Post as a win condition because our clock is not super fast. So being able to pop enemy Trench Post against the Cloud Post decks is very useful. Being able to pop creature lands against the control decks if they can stop our Abiding Graces can be relevant. This is also a sack outlet for our creatures. So if we do play against a matchup where we do not expect our Epicures and Thraben Inspectors to be dying, and the opponent is also trying to utilize non-basic lands, we can bring this in and set up not quite an engine, but it becomes an engine with Abiding Grace where we can just start getting rid of non-basic lands every turn. I'm a big fan of Dust Bowl in this format, and in decks that are red and have access to a bunch of small disposable bodies, Sheevan Harvest is doing the same thing as Dust Bowl. So it's primarily in here for Cloud Post, and it's in here for control decks with greedy mana bases that are not Snow.
Yeah.
If you're playing this deck and you think, oh, I think Sheevan Harvest might be good here, it's probably worth trying it out. Like 8 rack decks where they're running some creature lands and Eumidian hatcheries and things like that. Being able to pop their hatcheries with just one counter on it can be very useful.
Isn't hatchery priced out of the format now? I thought it was like $4 or $5.
Went back down. It's back down to like $1.50.
Okay.
It spiked super hard because it did really well in a legacy tournament.
Okay.
And then I think when the price went up, people who were sitting on them put them back into the market, and the price came back down a bit. So
okay.
It is. I don't know that people are running 4 of anymore. It's definitely a card you can play a couple of.
Okay, neat.
And then we have the Curious Farm Animals. So this is another 1-mana body. When it dies, it gains 3 life. And you sacrifice it and pay 2 to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So this is in here as a life gain piece for the pure burn decks where they only care about your life total, and you can just chump block a Monastery Swift Spear and gain 3. And it also is in here as a disenchant creature. So this is replacing Cathar Commando. And because this is replacing Cathar Commando, that's one of the major reasons I felt comfortable cutting the Lurises entirely. Because now our disenchant creature is able to work with Abiding Grace.
Yeah, that's pretty clever.
This is also a creature that sacrifices itself. So if we want to just be getting some kind of value from Abiding Grace, we can sack this and gain 3 life instead of 1. Is that a super great play? No, but like if all of the cards in our deck are doing things we want in general, it's fine for them to occasionally not work at full performance.
Yeah.
And then the last slots, these are in here pretty much purely for the combo decks. So we are on 4 Flame Scroll Celebrant, which is a 2/1 for 2, which when an opponent activates a non-mana ability, so pretty much if they're tapping it for mana, it doesn't do anything. Otherwise, it's going to be hurting them. It's just 1 damage every time. So against the Nadu decks with Shuko or Nomads, every time they activate those, 1 damage. And then it can get bigger power for 2 mana. So it kind of has a fire breathing ability, which means this is actually a relevant clock against the combo decks as well. So you're trying to get those 1 chip damages in, but if this can get in without being blocked twice, that's potentially 8 damage from the attack also, which means the chip damage starts to add up really quickly. And then on the other side of it, it just doesn't let them cast spells this turn.
Yeah.
So if they are on Oops All Spells and they flip their deck over, you can say, okay, in response to flipping your deck over, you don't get to cast spells this turn. They can get around that with Memory's Journey, but it makes it very awkward for them. Against combo, you have to be the beatdown deck, and this deck is not extremely well set up for that. But this card on both sides is able to give you a good threat or an extra turn of pushing. And then we also have 3 high noons for the combo decks. So if they are trying to storm off, or if they are trying to do first day of class and then cast a goblin with persist, if they are trying to high tide you out, anything like that where they need to cast spell followed by spell, High Noon stops it. It's good against the Cascade decks. Turn 2 can be a little slow, but if you're on the play, it's usually fast enough to put a high tide down. And it's really good against like the big Cascade decks. So there are a couple of decks now that people are playing in our local meta where their goal is to just cascade through their entire deck and put a huge army into play, and High Noon just says, no, you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
And then it also sacrifices for 5 damage. So again, in the combo matchups, we are trying to be the aggro deck. We need to push damage. Being able to cash in our High Noon for 5 damage at the end of the game puts a lot of boards very far ahead instead of very behind on a clock.
Yeah.
So it's buying you 1 to 2 turns because of the spell lock ability, and then it's accelerating you a turn because it gets you that extra 5 damage on the last turn.
So what are some cards we would sideboard out and sideboard those in for? Like, I know it's meta dependent, but
If you are playing against a deck where Kami Lock doesn't matter, like the pure combo decks, you can take out the Kami Locks and take out the Abiding Graces, and then you are just an Asmo deck.
okay.
If you are playing against a deck where Vexing Bauble just doesn't do anything except draw a card, that's perfectly fine to cut. If the opponent is not really heavy on creatures, I would leave the Asmos in because they're one of your bigger bodies, but you can actually cut the Lobster Man because you don't need to be aggressively sacrificing artifacts to control the board anymore.
Okay.
Against High Tide or other spell-based combos where they're not really relying on permanence in play, Council's Judgment obviously can come out. If you know for a fact that the opponent is going to just overload hard on Rest in Peace, or if they are a Rest in Peace energy field deck, you can cut the oval chases and cut the commies, because if they're Rest in Peace energy field, they're planning on not having damage be a thing anyway.
Yeah.
And just bring in the disenchants and bring in maybe some other stuff that might matter for whatever they're doing.
Okay.
I would not ever cut the Thraben Inspectors or the Voldaren Epicures or the Joshuas, and I would almost never cut the Fourth Year Lingus, because those are your main carded, well, not card advantage really, but like keep you moving through the deck, and then those are also your win conditions.
Got it.
Yeah, Step Through I would usually keep in. Soul Ring I would usually keep in. Cookbook I would always leave one in, but if the food synergy stuff is not really good, you can just go down to one copy. And if you do that, I would cut an oval chase along with them.
Okay. Interesting.
Do not sideboard out lands. Do not sideboard out Sol Ring. The deck is more mana hungry than it looks. You're gonna want to keep those in there.
Makes sense. Cool. Alright, so that kind of sums up the deck. Let's do a few test hands and then we can wrap it up.
This is a mulligan against a blind opponent. But if you knew that the Kami Lock was extremely good in the matchup, this would probably be a key.
Cool. So we'll do them all again and then we'll just cycle to a new hand.
This is a mulligan. Like, you only have one of your colors.
Yeah. We'll go to 5 and then we'll... Hey.
So, yeah, this is actually totally fine. You have to keep the cookbook to cast Asmo. So I would actually put back Soul Ring, even though that seems really weird, and Ragosht.
Yeah, that's fair. Interesting.
Because two mana does get you out onto the field. You're kind of hoping to draw an oval chase, and you're hoping they don't have removal for Asmo, but you do hold on to a removal spell for whatever they're doing. If your meta is like really either combo heavy or control heavy, you could keep the Ragosht instead of the Council's Judgment, just to have another body to put into play. Do you want to?
Yeah, 1 minute. We'll do a draw for this hand, so you reply to message. Sorry for the silence, folks. Important message. Cool. So we'll draw one more card, see if we draw that. So we put the Soul Ring back, we put the Ragosht away. Draw Council's Judgment, not terrible.
So if we kept the Ragosht, the Council's Judgment would be a great draw. A second Council's Judgment after putting it back is kind of iffy.
Yeah. And let's try another hand. No.
If this had a single white source, this would be a really good hand. It does not, so it is not. Go to 6.
Hey.
This is a good 6. We can put a step through down. We get to... Yeah, this is a great 6. So we get to turn 1, Thraben Inspector, turn 2, Mountain Soul Ring, cycle step through, get Asmo, get Cookbook, and then we also have one of our utility lands to follow up. So this hand is actually attacking for 6 on turn 3.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, with a cookbook in hand and then 2 bodies in play, plus we'd have a clue available. So yeah, I actually really like this as a 6.
Cool. Let's draw a card, see what it looks like. Alright. Pretty good.
Another utility land, that's totally fine.
And another land. Yeah, we're pretty good.
Yeah, we get to cash in our clue. We get to have a monastery running and an air temple running. So depending on whether they can deal with our creatures or not, we can either hit harder or find more gas. So this is a pretty good hand. The only thing that this hand is missing is an Oval Chase Daredevil or a 4th Earlingus to really get things running.
Cool. We will do 2 more hands and then we'll try to hit it at the 45 mark. Alright, this is pretty good.
Yeah, this is totally fine. Turn 1 Thraben, turn 2 Ragushed. We're going to try and draw a 3rd land by turn 3. So let's see what we draw. Yeah, perfect. We get the Gaia Reach. We have the Oval Chase to feed it. We're going to step through and immediately cast an Asmo. This is pretty much an ideal hand.
Hell yeah. Let's do 1 more. We're at about the 42 mark. Then we can have to field to wrap up.
This one is slow, but blind matchup I keep. We have both our colors. We have 2 total lands. We have a Soul Ring. We have 3 artifact draw tokens and 3 bodies in play. And then we just randomly have a cookbook. So if we find an Oval Chase or an Asmo or whatever, we're already set up to do some stuff. We would draw what cards on turn 1 and 2?
Let's see. Wrong tab. Draw Binding Grace. Or, oh, wrong button. Whatever.
Well, this hand is also not keepable.
Alright, you're it. Hey!
This hand is fine. Yeah, turn 1 Vexing Bauble is going to do a lot of work. Turn 2, we can play an Epicure. Turn 3, we can sack the blood and go drop Asmo, and then we are hoping to move through with Abiding Grace and start discarding Epicures to Cookbook and then getting it back for 3. So that has been the deck tech for Shrimp Fried Rice.
Yeah. Yep, that's kind of it. We thought it was funny. Toad kind of went over what decks that did terrible against, and Toad kind of did some tinkers, so it should be better against those sort of decks. So it's worth trying. It's a fun little deck. It's equal parts simple and complicated. It has some nuance, but it's fun. And you can play. You can say
your local meta is extremely combo heavy. I do not recommend this deck. If you have a bunch of people who play like low to the ground aggro decks and hard control counterspell type decks, this deck is a lot of fun and you can try it out.
But yeah, thank you very much for watching. The next video we'll do will be the Avatar set review / top picks. So we'll try to decide how many cards we're looking at. Then after that, we're starting kind of up in the air. We might lower the amount of videos we do come the new year. Toad might tentatively retire. And we'll see where it goes from there. But thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Check in the top left of your screen on YouTube, there should be a thing where it has a video that's recommended for you. It's special. It's just for you. You should watch it. And then below it are all the other Magic Talk with Toad videos. And I've also been making these videos so you can subscribe to Toad, and Toad might start doing their own stuff too.
I'm hoping to get some gameplay videos up on my channel.
Alright, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye!
Yep. See you next week.